Bonjour. Today's lesson is about description, describing what people are and are not. So we're going to be using the verb être. We're going to start out with just a few definitions. So first we have an adjective. An adjective is a word that describes a noun. So an English example would be, she is smart. Smart is describing she. Next, word gender. We've mentioned this in the past. So in French, all nouns carry a gender. Nouns can be either feminine or masculine. Knowing the gender of the word is a necessary part of French. So when you learn nouns in French, you also learn whether they are masculine or feminine. Next, making agreements. In French, adjectives must agree with who or what they're describing. This means the spelling of the adjective changes if it is describing a masculine, feminine, or plural word. And you'll see how that's going to work. Okay, so adjectives in their base form are masculine. So if you look up an adjective in the dictionary, the form that it's going to give you is the masculine form. In most cases, to make them feminine, all we need to do is add an E to the end of the word. So here we have américain, français, anglais, allemand, mexicain, irlandais, espagnol, japonais, and chinois. Okay, so all these right now are in their masculine form. Also note that I didn't pronounce any of the last consonants, well, I did for the L, of the word. And you can memorize when to say the consonant at the end of the word by being careful. Okay, so the consonants in the word careful, I'll fill in the vowels so you can see it, are the letters that you pronounce at the end of the word. So C, R, F, and L. If that letter is found at the end of the word, more than likely you're going to pronounce it. If it's any other consonant, it's not typically pronounced. Okay? So here we have all of the same words that we just saw, but now we've made them feminine, and we've done so by adding an E to each word. So now listen how the sound changes. Okay? Instead of américain, which was the masculine, we have américaine, française, anglaise, allemande, mexicaine, irlandaise, espagnole, japonaise, chinoise. Now the only sound that didn't change was espagnol because we're already pronouncing the L. Okay? All the other ones, the E made us pronounce that consonant because it's no longer the last letter of the word. So you can see here, all of these words are masculine. To make them feminine, we've added an E to each one. Blond becomes blonde, brun, brune, petit, petite, grand, grande, intelligent, intelligente, jolie, jolie. This does not change pronunciation because there's no consonant at the end, so we're just still pronouncing the I. Jolie, jolie. Content, contente, amusant, amusante, intéressant, intéressante, âgé, âgé, méchant, méchante. Now, if the word already ends in an unaccented E, so not the E aigu like in âgé, then the spelling is going to remain the same for the feminine. So, Suisse, russe, timide, énergique, jeune, and sympathique, none of these change in the feminine. They're the same in the masculine and the feminine because they already end in an E. Now, some adjectives follow a different pattern or sometimes no pattern at all. And if they don't follow a pattern, they're called irregular. You'll need to memorize the adjectives that add more than an E to make them feminine. So I've kind of grouped them. Okay. So our first grouping is Canadien, Italien, gentil, mignon. These words, in order to make them feminine, we double the consonant make it a different color. Okay, double the consonant and then add the E. Double the consonant, E. Double the consonant, E. Double the consonant, E. Okay, so it does follow a pattern, it's just a different pattern. So Canadien becomes Canadienne. Italien becomes Italienne. Gentil becomes gentille. Mignon becomes mignonne. Okay, now the next one is kind of in its category by itself because we don't have any other examples of words changing like this, but it's not the only one. So if it ends in an F, it's going to change to V and then add an E. So we have sportif becomes sportive. Okay, and there are other examples of this, like I said, they're just not on your vocab list. So for example, the word for naive we actually get from the French, but the masculine is naïf with an F, and we've adopted the feminine into our language. So they changed that F into a V to make it feminine, naïve. Naïf, naïve. Lastly, we have just some plain irregular adjectives. They don't follow any kind of pattern, and you just kind of have to remember. Okay, so we have roux becomes rousse, and beau becomes belle, masculine, feminine. So just like we change adjectives to feminine to describe feminine people, places, and things, adjectives also change to plural if the noun they're describing is plural. Okay, so for example, they are happy. We're talking about more than one person. Okay, so we have to say ils sont, they are, ils sont contents. And content has to match il plural. So it's masculine and plural. Okay, if we're talking about they, a group of women, elles sont contentes. Again, this needs to match the subject who it's describing. So we have feminine in plural, so we add an E and an S. So all you have to do to make adjectives plural is just add an S. One thing to note, however, if an adjective already ends in an S or an X, you don't need to add another S to make the adjective plural. Just like feminine words, if it already ends in an E, you don't need to add another one. So if it already ends in an S or an X, leave it alone. Ils sont roux, nous sommes anglais. We don't need to add anything. Okay. Okay, let's take a moment to look what these sentences actually look like, because that was a lot of information kind of broken down, and we want to see it all together. So, il est américain. He is American. Elle est américaine. Ils sont américains. Elles sont américaines. Okay. Il est irlandais. Elle est irlandaise. Ils sont irlandais. Elles sont irlandaises. Our last bit of information is talking about how to make sentences negative. It's pretty easy to make sentences negative in French. So in order to say what people are not, we're going to use two words. We're going to use the word ne and the word pas. And these words are going to create a sandwich around our verb. So don't forget where your verb is. It's right here. Je suis anglais means I am English. When I say I'm not English, okay, we're going to take our ne and our pas, and it's going to become the bread of our verb sandwich. So we're going to move the ne and the pas, and here we have our sandwich. So to say that I am not English, we say je ne suis pas anglais. Okay, and this is actually going to create a liaison. Je ne suis pas anglais. Okay, now let's look at the next example because it's a little bit different. Okay, we're still going to make our verb sandwich. So here's our verb. Tu es français. You are French. Okay, and we're going to move our ne. Oops, excuse me. See if I can get it. Okay, so we're going to move the ne and the pas to make our sandwich like we did before. Now here's the problem though. We don't want two vowel sounds right next to each other. Tu ne es pas français. Do you hear that sound that's created right here? It's a little bit of a stop to pronounce both vowels. What we're going to do instead is we are going to get rid of the E in ne. So we're going to cross that out and make an apostrophe. So we're going to put those words together. So instead of tu ne es pas français, we're going to have tu n'es pas français. It's much more sing-songy. It flows a whole lot better. So let me just show you what it looks like all together. Okay, and here we are. We have tu n'es pas français and je ne suis pas. Je ne suis pas anglais. Okay, so that is how you would make a sentence negative. I'm going to wish you bonne chance, and we will be practicing how to describe what people are and are not. Bonne chance. Au revoir.